Chapter 3, A Talk with Pull. Sleep was one of the few things Burdock excelled at, but last night he had hardly slept at all. Partly this was because he felt more than a little angry with Dewey. Partly Burdock felt aggravated by the restless churning of the other animals, their pacing hooves pervading the barn long after it was usually claimed by silence. But on top of all that, this miserable cold. In the coldest months, Burdock dreamed of being a house cat. Burdock had never really been a house cat, not for long. His brief kittenhood in the mail crate ended abruptly one day when his mother simply didn't return. At least it had been almost summer, and he could set out on his own to look for food and shelter, wherever he could find it. It hadn't been easy. Finally, in the late fall, with the days again turning brisk, Burdock thought everything was going to change when he was discovered by a young man who carried him home to his wife. They had radiant heat and soft woolly beds, but they also had a big dog, a new baby, and a small house. So it wasn't long before Burdock was passed on to another house down the street, where the man knew there were several cats already. Too many, really. The next spring, Burdock was unceremoniously dropped off by the mailboxes at the Baxter farm. To Burdock, it had felt like he was a pair of boots that didn't fit anyone. Now, a year and a half later, in the chilly blue of early morning, the gray cat stepped out of Baxter's barn. He threaded through the tall grass fringing the building and carefully arranged himself on one of the discarded tires heaped along the pasture fence. Burdock knew the tires would catch the first morning sun, and their black skin would heat up nicely. He settled his chin on his large paws and closed his eye. If sleeping and disappearing were Burdock's goals, he didn't achieve either. Before long, the animals were let out to pasture, and soon the big draft horse, Pull, crunched nearby on his jumbo-sized feet. Then he saw Burdock. The horse had never paid attention to the solitary cat, but things were different now. So when he spied Burdock lying in the sun, he wanted to talk. "Burdock," he intoned, his voice dark and smooth. "How are you doing?" Burdock lifted his head to answer when he caught sight of Dewey rounding the corner of the barn. "Look," he whispered. Pull turned, and together their steady gazes followed the man as he moved up the hill to where a few old apple trees crowned the slope. Here Dewey stopped and looked down on the farm, as if appraising the place. "What do you think he has in mind?" asked Pull. "What do you mean? We know what he has in mind, don't we?" answered the cat. "I mean, do you think he has a plan worked out already? Do you think Dewey's been thinking about this for a long time?" Burdock raised a whiskered eyebrow. "I don't know." "Does it matter? What are you getting at?" "I'm just saying people can surprise you," sighed Pull. "Listen, I'm sure I've never told you this, but before Tug and I came here, we worked on another farm. It was a big place, and we worked under a hired man named Hal. He was very capable and kind to us, and we really liked him. Everybody liked him. We felt lucky. We were as surprised as anyone when Hal ended up pocketing the money he was supposed to be spending on expensive veterinary medicines. The farm only figured it out when a few animals died." Pull's remembering face was sad. It was strange for Burdock to see enormous Pull looking forlorn. "And, as it turned out," Pull continued, "Hal had been stealing for a long time. That's what made me the angriest. All that time we thought he was our friend, and I had grown to trust him. Pull snorted a disparaging blast of air through his nose. It's a very strange thing to lose trust in someone you had faith in. You just want to believe your friends are on your side. Burdock wasn't used to thinking about things like this. He hadn't really had any friends or family to rely on and trust. But everything Pull said made sense. "What about Dewey?" Burdock asked. "Do you trust him?" Pull's eyes met Burdock's. "Dewey has never felt like a friend. Trust him? No. Though, really, after what happened with Hal, I'm not sure I'm ready to trust anyone." Burdock regarded the horse. The cat felt vaguely honored that Pull talked to him openly like this. Burdock and Pull looked back up the hill at the figure in the trees. Dewey was shaking the branches forcefully, jerking the gnarled limbs back and letting them go with a snap. With one terrific jolt, there was a moment of still silence before a salvo of apples came thundering down like stones.